Peter, we did not have a quorum, but I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting anyway. We'll skip over the items that need action. Oh, wait, no, Carly doesn't count. Sorry.
It certainly counts, not as a quorum though.
Good morning. Okay.
Morning,
Chairman's
sorry, I'm not a
remarks,
voting member.
I delegate you as the.
It was a beautiful morning up this morning, a nice break from the heat. I think we all needed that. So obviously, some of us needed more than others, didn't want to be in here. So, I'm gonna skip over the minutes, and I'm going to go to Mike with the president's report and the activities, and then into the audit and finance committee, but we can't vote on the reports. So,
Thank you very much. We have had another very busy month. We are working diligently with a number of businesses, not-for-profits, who are looking to get government funding through the governor's consolidated funding application process. We've done multiple letters of support, multiple meetings, helping people to understand the rules of the game and the road to get there. You know, in the past, we've done very well. And, you know, I think I do see the pool of applicants slowing down. I think people who, you know, were interested in the beginning either gotten money and moved on with the project, or their project fizzled, or they don't want to take the time and effort that goes with the bureaucracy of getting state funding. You know, there is generally, although they're in Empire State Development has capital funding now on a rolling basis. Generally, you apply in July for funding, and the announcement has been as late as December. And you know, if you're really trying to get something done, it's hard to plan. The schedule and the timeline of the process doesn't meet the timeline of business. And I think we have been moving forward with both the City of Hudson and the Columbia County IDA. We have several of the projects that were approved by the Hudson IDA last year are in various stages of moving forward, including you know, some activity on 620 Union. We did check with because that was done during COVID, the IDA was very liberal in terms of when the construction had to be completed. It gave them a 3-year window. So there's at least 2 years plus on that project, which did have a slowdown with respect to getting their financing in place after COVID. So that's a positive sign. The pocketbook factory, they started construction on, and they're about this week, they're going to close on the Town and Country Market project, which is known as 7 Dock Street LLC, and it's going to be a food processing operation. We did have the closing on the county IDA's Clock Estates project, the distillery out in Claverick. They had initially closed so they could access the sales tax exemption, but they closed their financing with Farm Credit in June. You know, there are varying the hotel project in Greenport is back on track. The developer and the assessor have you know, come to a resolution of the issues that were holding it up. But the developer does want to, because of the costs associated with supply chain increases and other construction material demand, supply and demand issues, they're coming back to the planning board in September with some modifications to the bill. You know, I think it's a $25 million project initially. I think, you know, it will be at least that. And it is 151 units of housing that would be for mid-income workforce housing, 130% of county median income, which would mean somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 household income. We did last night have the bi-monthly meeting, or the every other month meeting of the Board of Supervisors Economic Development Committee. We discussed housing, our report, and the housing forum we had back March 31st. The report and recommendations have come out in draft form. The consultant, Duncan Barrett, longtime housing executive in the Capital Region, recommended that a task force be appointed by the Board of Supervisors, similar to the task force that they set up for broadband, as a subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee. And the report also suggests that the task force consider creating a positioning of a housing coordinator, similar to the position that the City of Hudson created for a housing coordinator. Several supervisors have asked if CEDC would be in a position to serve in that capacity and to employ the housing coordinator. I think there's other supervisors who are considering whether that should be a county department or county position. I think my position at this point has been just to say you are here to serve. There is ARPA money available for this, so if they did decide to ask us to do it, we would be. They have the funding through ARPA to do a 2 or 3 year commitment to us. We did receive $50,000 from the county for the grant program, as well as the first 2 quarter installments. We received $75,000 from the county, representing half of the $150,000 commitment for project or Columbia Forward. Obviously, we're going to we partner with the chamber. CEDC gets $20,000 of the 150, and then we split the $130,000 50-50 with the chamber. We are working with the chamber to set up something where they would be reimbursed or paid on a monthly or quarterly basis, so that if the money from the county, I was very pleased that they didn't start and with the money in June, because we're only starting the project effectively July 1 because of the approval process. So, we submitted the contract and it moved quickly. On Columbia Forward, I'm going to ask Jessica to give an update in a moment. The final report is on broadband. Dave and I had a call yesterday with apparently the only 2 people who work in the New York broadband office at this point. I refuse to give anyone their name because I want to be the only one talking to them at this point. But if you can find it out yourself, you're welcome. But no, they were very interested in what we were doing. They complimented Columbia County where we are positioned with the data. We are also in beginning contact with the Public Service Commission, who released the report that they had commissioned. While they're working together, there are 2 parallel tracks. Our consultant took the addresses that we have in our database, the 1,250 plus addresses, and ran it, had an intern enter into this new PSC mapping tool. And there's a 73% discrepancy between the data that we've collected in the field and what the Public Service Commission has on their system. We're trying to determine whether it's definitional, because they have you're either standard or enterprise service, and nowhere in the 20-page report does it describe what enterprise service is. So, I don't want to jump all over them yet, but I want to find that we're going to be working this week to find out what those discrepancies are. We have also had conversations on broadband with the 4 towns that received funding from Representative Delgado, now our Lieutenant Governor. And there were 19 members of Congress who used a portion of their $10 million earmark to support broadband in their districts. because there were so many and the dollar amount was, in the 35 to $40 million range, the Office of Management and Budget directed all those funds to the only existing federal broadband grant program at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Columbia County doesn't qualify for their Reconnect program where the money was sent, so they have to either figure out whether there's a way to develop a special program for congressional earmarks or find some other way to get the money. That has frustrated the 4 towns who thought they were going to get the money directly through the congressman's office. We have been in touch. There is 2 people left in the, when you call the District 19 office. Obviously, there will be a member of Congress there on August 24th. But because of how the redistricting is, if it's small and narrow, he'll be there until December, and then he's got to run for the other district. And if it's Pat Ryan, he'll be presumably up for re-election a month later. It appears that Ghent has voted to pull out of this coalition of Ghent, Austerlitz, New Lebanon, and Canaan, and use ARPA money that they have not yet allocated to do $250,000 of the $800,000 of estimated cost of broadband in Ghent. That's got the other 3 towns a little nervous because the grant was in the name of the town of Ghent. But so Ghent is willing to stay in as the administrator of the funds if they're ultimately released. We have been in touch with the other members of Congress office in New York who allocated money to this program. It was Paul Tonko, Lee Stefanik, Representative Toomey, and then someone down on Long Island. We're all in the same boat. So, and my recommendation is that through Senator Schumer's office, they move the money to the New York State Broadband Office and let them administer it. But
Broadband grants are reimbursement grants. You need to do the work, prove you did the work, then you get the money. So somebody's got to administer it.
And I think that way, the application instructions for the USDA grant program is 120 pages. And you have to go through NEPA, environmental issues. But it's important, A, to be supportive of those 4 towns and the money that the congressman appropriated, because it represents 25% of the addresses that we're looking to get service to. And, it reduces the amount that the county is going to have to get from the federal funding that's coming. And it puts us in a better position. I believe it's going to take $8 to $12 million to fill out the county. And I think there will be a couple of, end of the road addresses that don't get served. But,
How many addresses were there that were not bid on by the providers?
Well, when we, there's about 300 or 400 of the 1,200 that are, when we asked the providers, how many addresses in the towns that have a need to have service are you interested in serving? And there were 300 or 400 that no one wanted. No one said they would look at yet. Now, we didn't ask them to match up to addresses because they wanted to be competitive. But, so as we look at it, it's growing existing businesses through our loan programs, our technical assistance, and our Columbia Forward program. It's working on housing and broadband and infrastructure because with broadband and housing, it's really housing is going to be very limited in opportunities if we can't find communities that are willing and interested in getting some water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband at the same location. And I think that we've kind of found ourselves in the role of spending time on community development to promote economic development. And so I think that it's a positive thing in the sense that people continue to look towards CEDC to get things done. But we do need to, we are asked to do this housing project. we have 2 openings right now. We posted ads for Lauren Crana's position and for a part-time administrative assistant, and they've been up 10 days, and we have 2 resumes, and one's from the Bronx and one's from Cairo, and that's for the administrative position. So I think taking some of this stuff on is challenging and a little concerning because of the inability to like employers in the private sector and other not-for-profits finding staff. Any questions on those issues before Jessica gives an update on Columbia Forward? Jessica?
Thanks. Nice to meet Jessica. I haven't met a couple of you yet, so nice to meet you. So as you know, the Columbia Forward program is to coordinate additional support for pandemic recovery efforts focused on business support, stabilization, job growth, and then also a dedicated loan and grant program. So I kind of look at that as 2 streams primarily: the business technical assistance and support that we'll provide, as well as the loan and grants, sort of in those 2 buckets. So just a quick update on some of the activities is we've been working closely with the Chamber, Martha and I. That's been going really well. I'm putting together some training and technical assistance sessions. Where we're at right now is we are looking at group sessions that'll be held on the 2nd Tuesday of every month, starting in September. It'll include topics such as sales tax, QuickBooks, human resources. And as soon as we confirm and lock in instructors, we'll have a schedule that'll get out there. I'm excited about the topics, I think, based on Martha's experience in sort of working with the businesses and the Chamber. The topics that we came up with a handful of them, and they're all based on really what the businesses have expressed, where they've expressed a need. So that's really, I think the goal should be for us to get that schedule out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, so that we can start marketing and attracting participants for those sessions. On the loans and grant side, we have refined the guidelines for the program. And if you haven't seen, it's businesses that have been in business for at least 2 years, have 25 employees or less. They're eligible for up to $25,000 in funding and 3.75% interest rate, Martha? 3.75, with terms up to 10 years. So I think, and so Martha's been fielding, I think, a lot of questions and inquiries after the press release went live. So I think we'll have a good pool to use up that money, hopefully not too quick. We're looking at even though we'll look at requests up to 25,000. We really want smaller amounts so that we can assist more businesses and also have an opportunity to maybe partner with other lenders, as well as using CEDC funding differently, the SBA funding. So I think we're in a good shape there. I think we've got a good pipeline so far. We have next steps is to start reaching out to all of the municipalities and the supervisors to start working and understanding what's their efforts related, efforts related to economic development, what type of economic development committees do they have in place to figure out how we can better support those committees, and also understand what their priorities are.
Obviously, in a very short period of time, Jessica's gotten up to speed on this and made a similar presentation that was well received last night by the Board of Supervisors, Economic Development Committee members.
Very good.
We had one issue where there's a town where the supervisor appointed 3 committees, each with 8 to 10 people on them. And, a quality of life, housing, and an economic development committee. And after they saw the press release, 3 or 4 from each committee called here wanting to get all the information they could so they could be prepared for the meeting. And I called the supervisor and I said, you gotta give us one person at best from each committee. Everyone wanted to be the first one in with the information, which is all good because it shows that there is community engagement at the town level and people who are willing to donate and contribute their time and talent to these efforts. But it also helped us understand that creating some generic materials that can be put on our website, and we're going to revive the Columbia Comeback website into Columbia Forward. By having that stuff out there, you can just refer people to information and then answer their specific questions. So, on the finances?
We now have a quorum, so, right?
We have 2600 and we have 5490.
Sure, go ahead.
On the balance sheet, our total assets are up 131,000. That's primarily because we booked the $150,000 of grant money from the state that was received by the county and then sub-granted to us, and then we sub-granted it to Clock. And that now has to be listed on our balance sheet as a loan. And also we have additional funding that we had received from the SBA. On our liability side, we have the deferred revenue from the Clock estate, so it goes in and comes out. And so our net equity is up 29,000, or it's down $29,000. On the P&L, I'm not sure that this report, I think the report may have been mischaracterized because it's comparing actual to annual budget. But if we're comparing it to the annual budget, we're 51% of revenue after 6 months. I think if you look at that, the only place that we're under budget is other income, and other where we're less than 50%, and other income were funding fees that we anticipated getting from managing the Office of Community Renewal grants, but the $300,000 grant to Clock, that fee gets paid at the end of their second draw. So when the 150 came in, so it is a timing issue. I thought that you could take a portion of the fee when you made the first distribution. On the expense side, again, we will send out the revised report. I didn't catch this, and at the finance committee we had the correct or the more traditional comparison to the 6-month budget. But our expenses were 60%. We only gave $3,000 of the approved $5,000 to CRC because we wanted to just match what their expenses were. That's the County Resource Corporation, which helps not-for-profits do bond deals. And if you give it up, you don't get it back because it's created by the state legislature, but it costs us $3,000 to $4,000 a year in grant money to sustain it. We keep talking about whether that's something we want to continue to do, but the hospital in the past has indicated that it's very important to them. We're under budget on insurance, but I did meet with our agent Peter Finger this week to look at do we have all of the bells and whistles of that have been added since we last reviewed our coverage, and that would include employment, it would include cybersecurity, it would include some of the added features that insurance providers have moved to, and in some cases limited going forward. So I think that he felt that the add-ons that he's going to recommend would be within that $1,000 budget. We continue to go down to the office expense where we're significantly over budget. And that's because we did buy new computers at the beginning of the year that we had not budgeted for. And our membership dues in various organizations are due in the beginning of the year, but we divided by 12 on that number. And we do spend about $35,000 when you add all of those up, and we're watching that, but we think that'll balance out. And the other area was under new initiatives, where we were, basically appears to have spent the entire amount for the year, but we did not budget for the we did not budget for the $30,000 in broadband expense, because we didn't know if, when we did the budget, if phase 2 would have been approved. And because we haven't billed the county yet for that revenue, it's not in the income. So we're 3% off budget for the year. And again, I apologize that this particular report was had the
employer expenses being down is because of the 2 positions being open.
right. And we had budgeted for it's more because not that they're open, it's that we in the beginning we had budgeted from January for project manager, which Jessica's position, and the administrative position, and we didn't fill them in the first half of the year. With paying out unused PTO, and we haven't. It's been no savings yet from the fact that Lauren's position is open. So, I'm pleased with where we are in the budget. What does concern me is, we now will have to book $150,000 or $125,000 from the county for Columbia Forward. Now, that's almost lockbox money, because it's got to be used specifically for the activities that are related to it. And so I do have a call into our accountant to determine, if we put that in, that's going to skew our budget and look like, oh, you got a lot of revenue, but if you can't reserve the expenses against it, you're going to, trick yourself each month that things are rosy with, or you're going to have to do a report that shows some type of an adjustment at the bottom. But it can't be impossible, because there are thousands of entities or millions of entities across the country that get grant money that they have to run a separate income and expense report on and aggregate it into their final numbers.
Like, was this the report with Rick Gass?
Yes, I don't know how I thought that we had just given the reports that we had reviewed at the finance committee, but I will go over that.
Too arduous, I can deal with it. Just
No, we had it.
You did it for the finance
We did
audit
it for the
committee
finance committee.
and prepped it. Yeah.
And I will, if you have 5 minutes after the meeting, we can just take a quick look at that. And I will send that packet out to all of you as well. And at the finance committee, we also ran a report showing for 6 months expenses by vendor. So you could get a sense of who are we doing business with, and who are the top vendors. And obviously, it's my consulting contract, our rent, and our accounting fees are at the top. But so.
Any questions?
second.
All in favor? Is anyone opposed? Carried. I'm going to jump back to the agenda to item 2 for the minutes from June 28th, 2022. Any discussion? Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 5 is the executive committee, which we did not meet. Governance and nominating did not meet. It's a long committee, several items.
Before Martha starts, I'd just like to point out that we have now hit, at least in my tenure, a milestone with 100 loans on the books. And we want to congratulate Martha on the work that she and Lauren have done this year. And 61 are SBA loans and 39 are CEDC loans. The average loans were on initially when the loan was issued, not what's due now, were $39,000 on the CEDC loans and $19,000 on the SBA loans. And I think that right now the total borrowed was $2.7 million, and the total due still outstanding principal balance is $1.6 million. So, you know, we're at 60% of the loans that have been issued over the past 5 or 7 years have been cycled down. And again, Martha will give the update on the status of the portfolio. But you know, we now are at a point where we have about $1.3 million to lend, and we are over the $3 million point in terms of the total loan portfolio, and we still have $200,000 to draw down from the SBA. So I couldn't be happier with this loan program. It's a quiet way of, you know, because of people's personal financial stuff, we don't advertise the success of it. But when you consider, you know, over 100 businesses and people are getting technical assistance, it's really, and when you look at the revenue between the SBA's previous year of $180,000 of support and almost $75,000 of interest income projected, you know, it's almost 30% or more of our revenue and expense. And I just wanted to make sure that as we balance out all the things that we're doing, that the board continues to appreciate and value the contribution that the SBA and loan fund relationship brings and the work that Martha does.
Okay, yeah, it's a wonderful program. We know all of our clients, and I think they value their relationship with CEDC. I went over the loan portfolio in great detail with the loan committee, but what I did for this board is I just ran a report as of yesterday, July 25th. We had 3 clients that were in arrears. One is the Columbia County Chamber. I'm not in any way concerned about them making their due payment. I've been in touch with them. Old Flower Brewery also missed their due payment, and they're well aware of that. And we have a very small client, who does trash removal. He has also missed his June payment, but he was in touch with us on Friday. We're expecting that. Any questions on the portfolio?
So that means that needs a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Eric, I just want to say that in no small part, this what Mike mentioned about our successful loan portfolio have to do with the work that you put into it, calling these people that are 1 month in arrears. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, it's a personal relationship with them all, and to have, I guess 100 accounts now, and only 3 of them were maybe 1 month in arrears, and their own phone is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Especially considering, you know, this isn't prime loan stuff. These people are startups, and there's a little bit more risk to it, so it's pretty remarkable.
Of course, we worry when we go into the cold weather, but yes, things are looking good. Yes.
You know, I would agree, and I think it's something that's really quietly done in the county. I had no idea. You know, from an outsider, that this program really was going on, and I, you know, congratulate you and be a little bit more cheerleading going on.
And the real benefit of the program is the technical assistance. We receive a grant every year from the SBA on ongoing assistance. Okay, why don't we start with Dean and Barnard, CBA Chatham Provisions. As I mentioned to the loan committee, I have known Paul Furlow for probably 12 or 15 years. At one point, he was thinking of opening a brick and mortar restaurant, and at the time, I think he and his wife had just purchased a home, so they opted for a food truck. That was very successful. He then evolved into catering, was working out of his father's commercial kitchen over in Amsterdam. His father retired at the end of last year, so he's been working toward opening a brick and mortar. I wouldn't call it a restaurant. It's really a takeaway prepared food business. They'll continue to do catering out of that kitchen. Lauren and I went out and visited. It's right across the street from Bartlett House on Route 66. Alan Phillips owns the building and has done a beautiful job renovating it. When we were there, he was just trying to find somebody to install the hood system. It's difficult getting contractors, as many of you know, but he should be getting very close. So what he has requested from CEDC is a $30,000 working capital loan. It will pay for some additional material, supplies, and inventory, but it's basically working capital just to get him through the first few months. He does have a following. I think he'll be successful in that area. There isn't a whole lot there. In fact, I was talking to another one of our clients, Michael Benson, who works outside of Chatham. He was thrilled to know there'll be another food option not too far from where he is. Paul worked with Brian Zweig to develop his projections. They look reasonable to us. He and his wife have excellent credit. She's going to continue to keep her job at Etsy. We think it will provide 3 full-time jobs over the next 3 years. And the collateral will be a lien on all business assets, but we will be in second position because he did qualify for the IDL.
So this loan was approved at the local discussion.
Motion.
We have a motion to approve it. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? It's carried.
Next, we have Common Hands Farm. They are a known entity. We already have an existing loan with Common Hands. Just over a year ago, they came to us for a $20,000 fast forward loan. And that was basically to pay for some improvements they've made. And I think basically paid for those improvements with their credit cards. And we basically, it was a return of owner equity. They came back to us this year because they continued to fund their growth with credit cards. And some of those interest rates are now 23.9%. And I don't think they're going to get any lower. These were all legitimate business expenses. In addition to those purchases, they've hired 3 additional people in the last 6 months. And so this is really a working capital loan to make sure they have operating capital and to pay down some of those higher interest credit card bills. They've never been late on a payment. I think their credit scores took a hit because they have relied so heavily on credit scores. We have them work, well, they haven't worked with Brian Zweig yet, but we have arranged that, and we think that they can use some advice on cash flow management. I'm also trying to connect them with HVAC, Hudson Valley Agribusiness. I think there are some programs that will benefit them. You know, we're not really designed for a farm business, but I think we're going to help them with their cash flow in the short term. I think long term they could use some more specific help in relation to operating a farm business.
Martha, the grant, the 25, is that a Columbia Forward grant?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And so we're not providing that on the amount that's being used to pay down the higher interest debt, just on the $10,000 that's going to be used for current operating.
And how does that determine the amount? I just noticed that some are 25, some are 1,000. Is there a rule of thumb or case by case?
I think going forward, we have a more stringent
Yeah,
guidelines.
it's 10% of
Okay.
the CDC loan if it qualifies for the Columbia Forward program. So it's not a as of right. I think we'll really look at making sure the business qualifies for the grant.
Okay.
You know, I think also weeding out people that are just coming to take the loan to get the grant. I'm kind of be careful with that.
Yeah.
But in total, it would be 10% of the grant, the max of 2,500.
Got it.
Or 10, I'm sorry, 10% of the loan with a max of 2,500.
Okay, is there a precedent for approving a loan to pay down a credit card debt?
Yes, we did the exact same thing for minutes. A lot of businesses get started using credit cards. And sometimes that works out very well. But in this situation where they're really funding their growth with credit cards and with the interest rates being what they are, it's put them in a difficult situation. And the SBA does allow loans to be used to pay down higher interest debt.
I think when you look at the Columbia Forward program and it's intended to be pandemic recovery and sort of getting back, businesses assisting, helping them get back on their feet. That's where the working capital, paying down some of those loans or the credit cards they used during the pandemic. It makes sense for the Columbia Forward portion.
So this loan was also approved.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Start.
Common plan, and then we have helping hands. This is Julianne McSween, a very smart and motivated and tenacious and thorough individual who came to us with her plan that she's been developing over many months now. This will be a home health care agency. She has years and years of experience in nursing. She has relationships with all of the local doctors and nursing homes and discharge nurses. She has a team of 3 people that are ready and willing to join her as soon as she can get started. She did work with Brian Zweig on her projections. She has met with Sue Bear on accounting issues. She has met with an insurance agent. I think she is ready to go. In fact, she's already submitted her application for the microbusiness seminar series this fall. She is looking for $50,000. It's primarily working capital, some equipment and software. She needs computers. It will be a home-based business. She only had a limited amount of grant funds to invest in the business, but her father has offered a parcel of property with a mobile home on it as collateral and will have a first mortgage on that property. So like the other loans, this is a 6-year note. The interest rate is 3.75%. She has an excellent credit score. We think there's a real need for a business like this in the county. The loan committee approved this one as well.
Does the county offer similar services?
Sarah knows a little bit about the office for the
I
agent.
discussed that with Martha. We do have some, not with the county, as far as I know, they finally pick up some money to hire, I think 4 to 6 people full time. And we have, there was a waiting list of several years that has now been filled. So the county does some, but there's still an incredible need for more.
There are a lot of people who wouldn't qualify for the county's assistance in that area.
That is in
Yeah.
And speaking to this as the Home for the Age board, she will have no trouble getting business. That is not even, there is such a demand for this. We're just nibbling around the edges. So that's the least of her concern. She'll have plenty of business.
Well, she's already licensed as a nurse and she can oversee the home health aides. They don't need to be licensed, but the 3 that she's planning on hiring are all licensed practical nurses.
I know that the collateral includes a whole home. Difficult asset to liquidate. If you can liquidate a train, I'm sure you can.
Anything with wheels on it.
Actually, that was included in the appraisal that it would be a minimum of 6 months to sell that property. We do. have-
You might take the mobile home off it and sell the property.
She's also paying gas money.
For employees, yes, as they travel.
Any more discussion? This account was approved by vote. Can I get a motion? A second?
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much.
So moving along, I think we're about workforce and education. Dr. Drummer, do you have anything on workforce?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to share the news that we got a $1 million grant from the state of New York for our cannabis program. And we are working with SUNY Adirondack, SUNY Schenectady, and Fulton Montgomery Community College. We all have a different aspect of the trade. So we'll be splitting that money evenly among the 4 institutions, and it's going to be a great boon to our businesses in Columbia County that are going to be focused on cannabis. Our focus is on retail sales, and we're the only community college that is taking that focus. So we're really excited about it, and the classes start in the fall, and already they're nearing capacity. So there's a great demand for it. So really very, very pleased with that. We're also exploring training for the new, is there a wholesale just distribution on Depot Street that's opening? There was a meeting yesterday with Randall Martin, who is trying to, find trained workers, to take jobs, at that. And Mike, you may know much more about this than I, but Randall reached out to see how the college might get involved. So, we're investigating that avenue too. And I think that's it for this month.
Thank you very much. And with that, I think that finishes our agenda.
One thing about government nominating, we will be interviewing one person, hopefully in August, but we have a meeting coming up, and if you have any suggestions for board members, I would appreciate it.
I had one, but it's kind of fizzled. I had one, but it
Okay.
fizzled.
That's the one.
Summertime.
Maybe we won't.
Is that the one you were going to interview?
Maybe. We'll talk after.
Okay.
We'll re-interview existing board members.
Honestly, we do have openings, and always welcome recommendations from the board. Okay. Anybody from the public? I see none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. Thank you.
Have a great summer day. See you at the farm stand.
Did Brandon back from you? And did you? Okay.